I think one of the things that Maddie comes across a lot is this, in the classroom, is the sense that the poet was completely intentional, has one meaning and title for you, like, and that's it. It's the one little golden egg, and if you don't get that, and only the teacher has the perfect answer. Right?
And it's underneath the words.
Right.
It's like under here somewhere, right? And it's like, oh, how do we get it out?
And that's why I didn't like poetry in high school.
That's why none of us liked it, because we thought, well, it's how do we get under there?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Instead of,
you
how
just
do
look
we,
in the mirror and be there.
Teaching poetry for the Academy of American Poets through Teach This Poem, I very much think of trying to get both teachers and students unafraid of poetry, because I think they are all afraid, or many of them are afraid of not being able to find what's under the words, as you put it so well. And I think that the best way to do it, or the easiest way to do it, especially for students who come from a wide variety of backgrounds, with a wide variety of abilities, with a wide experience with the English language, is to get them to relate to the poem emotionally and to give them some kind of hook that helps them enter the poem in a way that they would never expect to do that. So every Teach This Poem has a hook or an interdisciplinary resource that allows students to enter the poem in a way that they might not expect before. So, for instance, if they were going to read this poem, they wouldn't read this poem at first, or even if Richard were there.
Yeah, I wouldn't read it.
He wouldn't read it right
off the
away.
bat.
What would happen is we'd do something first. What I might do in the case of this poem is, I was thinking they one of two things. One is to have students bring in a photograph of something that happened when they were younger that they feel very strongly about, good, bad, or not indifferent, good or bad, and bring it into class. Now, some students might not bring it into class, and so they'd have to rely on the memory itself. And then, have them share those with each other in some way or another, in small groups or with a partner or whatever, and then actually begin to write some words of their own experience that would describe that in a way so that someone else might begin to understand what they actually experienced. And that takes some doing, and there's some backing and forthing and going on. Only after they've done that and they have their nice little piece of description, and it doesn't have to be a poem, it can just be a description, then would they read the poem. And while they're reading the poem, they would, just as we did actually, talk about the things or circle the things that jumped out at them, the things that, why is that there? Or I don't understand that, and ask questions of the poem. And they have to feel that the environment's safe so that if they say, I don't understand that, they're not wrong. What they're doing is exploring the poem and getting deeper into what the poem is all about. After they do that, for Teach This Poem, we often have an audio or a video of the poet, not all the time. Sometimes we just have to rely with the print. But the teacher would have them get back in their groups and discuss what they noticed in the poem. And I need to say a lot of this comes from work that was done by John Dewey in Art as Experience and Maxine Green in Aesthetic Education. That's where I come from philosophically. And I think that the Academy is very much interested in that in terms of bringing poetry to kids and teachers in a new way so that it will spread, as you are, so that it will spread and they won't be afraid of it. And then there are classroom activities that the teachers can try. They're usually somewhere between 4 and 7 points, and teachers can do all of them or some of them. They can use the resource or not use the resource. They can do whatever they want to with it. But we've had tremendous success with it. There are now over 12,000 readers of Teach This Poem. These are teachers who just subscribe to it. And some of them use it occasionally, some of it use it more often. Some of them just open it up and read the poem. But all of that is a wonderful use.
Sure.
And the poems we tend to use are poems like Richard's, ones that are accessible to make things accessible, to have them understand, as Richard is very fond of saying, I've heard him say it a number of times, that it's all about senses. It's all about a sensory experience. It's all about being, that's where the poet starts. The poet starts by taking something in and then doing something with that, to share it with other people and put that experience in words.
So it becomes an experience when it's taught as an experience as well.
Exactly.
The poem is always, this is an
actually-
experience for me.
Yeah, right.
And then
I
they have to
actually-
experience something else. Yeah.
I agree with everything you've just said, and I think our approaches are quite similar. I actually love the class hour, and I love the way a poem will often sit nicely
In an hour.
inside a class, or maybe 50 minutes, however long a class is. But it's my aspiration as a teacher that the class itself can form a sort of memory. It will have a form, and the form will be
Oh, how nice.
defined by the poem we read in it. And so that immersive, drenching bath we take in a poem is also my ideal.
But the artist, the poet, would have had a sensory experience, a bodily experience. In order to be able to write the poem, you've got to have some kind of bodily experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so students need to somehow get into that.
That mode.
Thank you, that's the word, to own it.
Own the voice.
To own the
to
voice.
own the process.
Exactly.
Own the voice.
Yeah.
So you're getting them to approximate, if there is such a thing, the process that a poet would use in order to be able to write the poem.
It's sort of like fertile
Opens it
ground to.
Didn't you have an exercise where they circled the sensory?
Yeah, and this is a good, and this I do from third graders to post MFA. it's amazing how many things we can forget too, or how many things skip us. But it's all about sensory detail, and of course it's one of the biggest tools in the toolbox, right? But I just make them circle everything that I get them first to realize that if you really stop to think about it, we often say show, don't tell, blah, 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 but even that's an idea, right? And as we grow older and older, and as we can really get it outside of our bodies, right? And so, but I get them to think about the fact that everything that is an abstract thought in our minds, every single thing, at some point only makes it appear through a sensory experience. Bottom line, end of story. It doesn't matter how intelligent you think you are. At some point, you had to use your eyes to read the book, hold the paper. You cannot just experience things in a vacuum. They are actually always sensory experiences, right? So I just get them to go through, usually break them into groups of the five senses, though a sight is mostly everything, so there you go. Like,
That's easy.
We never get to them. We just get to the four. But of course, there's a lot of smells and tastes in here and sounds. And I get them to just circle everything where that sense is evoked. Each group gets a sense. And then they slowly realize that if you really look at this poem, it's about 98% sensory detail. End of story. This poem is constructed out of sensory details, including the sound of it. Dollops is not just an image, it's a sensory detail, because you're hearing that, right? Or you're hearing it.
Yeah.
And then I get them to realize, so I give them this stanza, that second stanza. It says, my mother should still be in the kitchenette of the Gulf Motel. Her daisy sandal from Kmart, still squeaking across the linoleum, still gorgeous in her teal swimsuit and amber earrings, stirring a pot of arroz con pollo, adding sprinkles of onion powder and dollops of tomato sauce. And I say, what if I would have written this? My mother should still be in the kitchenette of the Gulf Motel. Her red pumps from Neiman Marcus still squeaking across the marble. Still gorgeous in her raspberry red bikini and 2-carat diamond stud earrings. Stirring a pot of baked beans as dollops of
Baked
cigarette.
beans, I'm confused.
Dollops of cigarette ashes fall from her mouth, from her cigarette.
That was a curveball, the baked beans.
And when they all laugh like we're doing, and it's like, and I just get them to see, all I did was change the sensory details. I did nothing else. And that's your job as sort of a reader and a writer, to see what the sensory input, what the writer is trying to do is create sort of an emotional aura or environment or room. You can fill the room with some kind of complex emotions that you can step into and feel. And from there we get into, inevitably they start saying their stories, and then we have sort of the larger conversation, which is also, so it's my little life, your little life in the mirror leads to a more objective conversation, which I think we can get to, which is what does your experience and my experience together, or the writer's experience and your experience together, mean about the big L, life?